DDG presents the Summer Game Fest 2022 recap. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? Yet again, I get a haircut and you don't notice, don't say anything, don't compliment me.
Your headphones are covering your haircut.
But compared to the mess that it has been the last couple weeks.
Have you seen my dome?
Notices.
Look, it's all shiny.
Hey, I notice when it's like, I want to see, I get like a night vision, Dave.
Yes, I know.
So it's really hard for me to tell.
You get the crappy camera, Dave. So, because Discord doesn't allow multi-use cameras. So, or OBS doesn't allow multi-use Discord. Or whatever.
Get the 240p camera for Dave.
All right,
we got Game Fest to talk about.
Yeah, we got Game Fest. So we released our weekly episode a little early. A couple of you noticed that, so thank you. The reason being because we were 90% sure we were going to record this, and now we know we're going to record on Sunday evening as well after the Xbox Bethesda showcase. So, and then we may or may not have a numbered episode next week, just because it'll be last week's numbered episode, Summer Game Fest, Xbox Bethesda, and then that'll pretty much cover everything that we would have talked about on the numbered episode. So maybe we'll pump the brakes for like 7 days.
Yeah, and the number episode usually suffers anyways because, like you said, we talked about every single thing in special episodes.
So we're gonna go over it was like roughly like an hour and a half, 2 hour presentation from Jeff Keighley and his team for Summer Game Fest today. We're just gonna kind of use a recap, and we're gonna kind of go like bullet point by bullet point. Full disclosure, I was working today. And I did not see it live. I did see some stuff on Twitter, and I did see some stuff on YouTube, and then I did like watch a quick YouTube video of a recap on it, and then I watched a video on one of the games that's announced, just to give me that I had some interest in knowing some more about. But we're gonna just shoot it over to Michael, and he's gonna kind of go bit by bit, and I'm sure we'll have a little conversation about each.
Yeah, all right. So the theme of this year's Summer Game Fest was, hey, we have games in space. Because there were just so many games. I'm sure if we look at the recap at the end of the episode, it's going to be like 4 games, but it was still like there was a theme this year, and it was like, what if space? And we just got a bunch of dystopian sci-fi space station games. The first one being Aliens Dark Descent, coming in 2023. This was just a CG trailer, didn't really give us too much of what to expect, but it's an Aliens game, so that it showed like multiple like characters being chased down by an alien. So we got another one of those. Not something I really wanted to start with, especially because it I believe it followed with the game that looked like really interesting that we got some gameplay, which is the Calisto Protocol, which we saw just like a little bit of a trailer at the PlayStation State of Play, and then this time we actually got some gameplay, and it looks exactly like you would want a spiritual successor to Dead Space to look. So like Calisto Protocol looking quite fantastic.
Almost to the point where I was thinking about playing it, and now I might not play it just because it might be a little too over the top. You can definitely tell that this is the Dead Space team, but they do not have the EA handcuffs.
and Dead Space, like the first game was like pretty gory. Second game, it got more towards action and
more commercialized, for sure.
Yeah, so by the time you get to the third one, it was kind of like, this is pretty like light, still gory, but like it was missing something. This looks like, the former devs from Visceral working on this, and they look like they got a decent. What if we could do
what we wanted?
Yeah, and looks like they had a decent budget to work with, because the game looks like stellar. It's just a matter of like, what's the size and scope of this game? Because it's been in development a couple years, but it's a new studio, so we don't know exactly how much.
How far? How many hours in can they dig into this mechanic? Like, one of the recap videos I watched is and again, I haven't really messed with any Dead Space games, but in terms of like Dead Space always had like a kind of a game loop of cutting off limbs, and so like how much can you delve into this mechanic or this loop enough, how long, before it gets kind of bland or boring. But graphically it looks amazing.
Yeah, especially with that aspect of it. We saw this a little bit with Doom, but Doom got better at it. Is you'd run into like canned animations to where like, there's only so many animations of you taking apart this creature or this character. So like, how are those animations going to work? Are there going to be a wide variety of them? what should we really expect from this studio, being like probably the first game in what they hope is a franchise,
Mm-hmm.
and what they can do, and especially now that they have like the release date locked down for like December 2nd or 3rd, and then Dead Space remake coming out.
I hate December releases for anybody though. Like it just feels like it's not that it's. I get it, like you talked about last week about getting in front of the Dead Space remaster. Great idea, great strategy. But anything post Game Awards and then prior to the new year, I almost feel like anything post Game Award or post Thanksgiving prior to Valentine's Day is just lives in this void.
Yeah, it's a really hard sell, like especially when you have something like in this genre. It's like December's really no one's really thinking about that. It's not going to pop up on anyone's Christmas gift, so they're not going to benefit from.
It's not going to get a ton of chatter on holiday break from anybody that you follow on Twitter that like in the gaming universe or that or developers that you pay attention to. They're like, hey, I'm really enjoying this. Like I don't feel like it's gonna. It might be good, it might be great, but I just don't feel like it's going to be one of those things that's going to be on top of somebody's pile that when they have 2 weeks off that's like the first or second thing they pull off the pile.
Yeah, unless it's like so amazing that the critical reception is just, you can't ignore it.
Right.
But it also will suffer from the fact that like we saw this a little bit with like Cyberpunk. I don't want to invoke Cyberpunk and like curse this game.
Yeah.
But like Cyberpunk came out broken, and then they're just like, yeah, we'll fix stuff after Christmas. Because like no one's, if something's wrong with the game, they won't be able to fix it.
They literally have like 10 days.
Yeah. So like that's something you have to worry about. So hopefully this is like a really small, like tight experience that they can take advantage of.
I mean, you're a pretty big Dead Space fan, right?
Yeah, I like the first one, finished the second one. Didn't really mess with the third one.
So what's the sweet spot for you? 12 to 15 hours?
I would say 8 to 12.
Okay.
I would say like especially I something like.
Well, I guess when I say 12 to 15, I kind of talk completionist when I say that. Like if you really like the game, like so yeah. But like story wise, like that 9 to 11 window, 8 to 10.
Yeah. That would be the sweet spot. Especially as I get older, I'm kind of just like I don't want like. I still think The Last of Us Part 2 was one of the greatest games ever made, but it didn't need to be 30 hours. Like so, give me like a decent size campaign and I'm happy.
Awesome.
Especially you don't want filler for especially for like a game like this. You don't want them to drag it out or put a bunch of collectibles in there. Then we got a overproduced like Modern Warfare 2 reveal. I know they were just like recycling the set from Activision's own reveal for it, but when they were just showing like the GM of Call of Duty like on a battleship with like banners around of the characters, it seemed kind of crazy, but we at least saw some Modern Warfare 2 stuff. It looks good. They says they're going to focus on like shipments and oil rigs. Basically, hey, those maps that we've been including in every Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare. We're going to focus on like building stuff around like those.
It's supposed to be their new engine too, right?
I believe so, but they've said that before, like new engine, and then
people were saying it just looks a little bit more crisp, which obviously it's probably running on some high-end PC, if it's not all CG. And then this is the last Activision Blizzard Call of Duty we're getting, and we know that the Call of Duty is taking a year off next year, so.
Yeah, they hinted a little bit about like Warzone 2.0. It's.
I think it's interesting that they called it 2.0. If they called it 2.0 versus 2, which means it's just going to be building on top of 1.
Yeah. Though they did talk about Modern Warfare 2 is moving to a like the new engine, like you said, and then Warzone Experience will be on the same engine. So
I just wonder if they're going to transition everything to that engine.
Yeah, no, I believe so because I think they did mention either this or in their own event that like. Some of your stuff from Warzone current is not going to be able to transition over into 2.0.
Oh, you have to earn it again.
Yeah, so and it's one of those things where it's like disappointing, but you also, we've seen this, with Destiny and other stuff. It's like the devs are like, we want to do cool shit, but we can't do cool shit if we're constantly carrying the stuff from old games over. Our
truck can't go 100 miles an hour with the 12-foot U-Haul on the back of it.
Yeah. So it's that thing where it's just like they need to do something with Warzone. 2.0 is the reason to do it, and if you're going to move over to a new engine, for Modern Warfare 2, you might as well try and clean slate it as much as possible. But yeah, it looks good. The new engine, it looks like it does water significantly better, which is why they're talking about like, hey, we're going to focus on like shipments and oil rigs,
Right.
because it looks like their engine can handle water better than it has before. So we'll get some interesting locales or just some repeat stuff that we've seen before.
So real quick, and then we can move on. What do you think about the $70 universal price tag or the $70 minimum price for everything? And then will it or won't it be on Game Pass by November?
I don't think it'll be on Game Pass. I think they don't want to
Agreed.
mess with any of their antitrust stuff before then, because then it's just like them making a deal with themselves before the deal's closed. And I'm fine with $70. Like, production values on games are getting too high, and it's just a very expensive medium. So I would rather we get $70 games than have every game try and figure out free to play. And microtransaction.
Those are the two things that I saw on the internet the last couple of days of like, oh, like Microsoft's going after all this money, and I'm like, okay, well, Microsoft doesn't have any control over this yet.
Yeah, they have nothing to do, and at this point, like Activision has to go into this holiday as if the merger is not going to happen, just in case, because they don't know what's going to happen. They can't just phone it in.
It is getting tied up, so
it is getting tied up, but like it seems
I think it's going to go through, but it is getting tied up to where maybe it could get delayed into. I think it'll be done before the physical year ends this year, but it'll be in 2023 before it's done.
Yeah, I mean they basically gave it a deadline of like June of next year.
Yeah,
so it's going to hit that deadline. It's just a matter of like Activision can't afford to just like sit out, and just be like, yeah, you know what, we'll just leave money on the table right now and just hope we get bailed out. And it's just like, nah, there's too much controversy with Activision to bank on that. So then we're getting a Flashback remake coming to PC. I don't know anything about Flashback, but I feel like this is one of the games that Josh yelled at me about once or twice.
Oh boy,
because I didn't know what Flashback was. It looks like a side-scrolling sort of thing. So we'll just move on from that.
Thankfully, he doesn't listen, right?
Yeah, no, there's no way he listens. And then we got another space station game. So it's called Fort Solace. It's starring Roger Clark from Red Dead Redemption 2 and Troy Baker of Last of Us fame. So this looks like really high budget. Like they were talking about how this is a new studio, but like they have money apparently to hire like some top voice acting talent and then had them do a lot of like live acting, capture. So this looked pretty interesting in terms of what it is. This seems like it is. So they basically, I want to say Brown pitched it as like, what if Dead Space met Moon, which is a movie that is basically about like an astronaut just trapped on the moon with an AI companion. So it looks like it's going to lean into, not as Dead Space as in like the visceral gore, but the idea of being out there in space, potentially by yourself, though there is some communication with the two characters. Either they're together or they're at different ends of like a station. So this looks good. This would be something, Dave, that I'd want you to watch a trailer for probably after we record. But this looked pretty good, and with the talent voice cast that they have, sounds like it could be like pretty interesting.
What's it called again?
This one is called I had to roll up. Fort Solace. So this one looked pretty interesting. Man, it made me think of like how many games that I think I've seen over the years that like take place in a space station, and how many actually have released. Because I feel like there was like an E3, maybe 2018, where I saw like 3 or 4 space station games, and I feel like only half of them have released. But this is like a new studio. Fallen Leaf is the name of the studio. This is their first game. But again, based on what we saw in the trailer, it looked very like high budget, and again, the voice acting kind of adds a pedigree to this. That's just like, I hope they can nail it, for an independent game. So hopefully we see more of that soon. And then we had Routine. So Routine's interesting because this is an Xbox exclusive. And this was a game that I believe was the game that was like announced 10 years ago. was it this one? I'm trying to think. Hold on. Now I gotta look this up because there was a game, and I believe it was this one. But this one was sci-fi. Looked like there's like AI robots that are like kind of around scaring you. I almost felt like this is like it felt like another space station game, just because of the aesthetic look of it. But yeah, this was basically announced 10 years ago, and it's finally coming out. And it is a Xbox exclusive. So Xbox One, Series X, and Game Pass day one, though there is no release date for it yet. And we will see Game Pass pop up a couple times for some of these games because, as we've talked about for weeks, Game Pass is going to have to open the pocketbook and get some games because they don't have any of their own. So then we got Stormgate from some former Blizzard developers. This is a free-to-play RTS game. Looked pretty interesting. Not really mine and Dave's like genre, so we won't speak too much of that. Then we got some other games. We got like High Water. We got American Arcadia. American Arcadia looked pretty interesting. It kind of reminded me of like Headlander from Double Fine.
Okay.
Was it Double Fine? It's like a side-scrolling game, very like retro future pop art like art style. Looked pretty interesting. Not really too sure exactly what the game play is going to be, but I would imagine it is going to be a little bit of a adventure game. It has like a dystopian like TV show setup, so looks pretty interesting. And then we got Midnight Suns, which introduced Venom and Hulk and a couple other characters in there as well. Dave, I believe you saw this trailer, or at least saw some gameplay.
Eric's Gaming on YouTube. I listened to it on my way home from work. He did like a pretty big breakdown because it sounds like he got to play the game for like 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff that he was talking about is like this is not XCOM. No. And it is a turn-based card, it's a turn-based game from the XCOM team, but like one of the things they emphasized a lot is like if Iron Man goes up to do one of his abilities, like he won't miss. Like superheroes don't miss. So in terms of like doing that stuff, and the card system, which I know is initially the little bit that I saw from today, the card system looks interesting enough to me to kind of hold that loop for me as a little bit of like a kind of a looter style. Mm-hmm. And then as you're upgrading your characters, and it's interesting that they're creating they're essentially making their own Marvel character.
Yes.
Like the Hunter. And so like that stuff, it was on my radar and it kind of fell off because of the card based, but now seeing it kind of like in action, I'm like, okay, that isn't terrible. So it definitely looks interesting to me to like level up your characters and have friendship stuff. And the thing that's I'm concerned about is that like just like you were talking about with the Dead Space successor Calypso project, if I said that right, I'm sorry. Protocol is that they're talking about this game being like a 50 to 60 hour game, and that's like only investing in like 2 to 4 characters.
Yeah, if you're doing like a turn-based card game, that's kind of the hour count you want.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the hour count you're going to want for a Marvel game.
Agreed.
If that makes sense. This would be another one that would probably benefit from like a 10 to 20 hour campaign, which I'm assuming you will get that 10 to 20 hour campaign. It's just if you want to max out your characters.
They talked about like new systems being introduced and new heroes being introduced as you go through the hour marks. Mm-hmm. And then like even like mods being introduced to the cards. To where like you might get a mod that does no good. It's random. It's worthless. Or you might get a mod that's like amazing, but the mod system isn't introduced until like 25 to 27 hour mark.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's going to be like based on what we saw from like it's all CG stuff. This whole like showcase,
which is
CG
also a little concerning. Because this comes out in October and it's CG.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of thing about that is because the first review was so bad.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're not going to work on it, and they went radio silent to like redo the entire game. But it sounds like they had like the mandate of like, we need to make these card interactions look cool as hell and slightly more.
I wasn't able to watch the video, but I believe the Eric's Gaming channel had his captured gameplay.
Yeah, and it sounds like that the gameplay is very much still being worked on because they realize that like for people that aren't used to like turn-based card games, like they don't want to feel like they're not part of the action. So it sounds like that's what is being worked on to at least you're still not part of the action, but they want to at least make it seem like more is happening than
they talked about that like over the top like your supers and your high end abilities are going to be like a wow factor to them versus like they talked about XCOM like doing something interesting or setting something up correctly and then missing like that that hurts your feelings like
because it was
and
RNG,
it removes the hero
fantasy.
fantasy and you're playing with heroes so they did talk about that but there's also like all of those like the level of concerns of like the hub world that they have and you're only allowed to have so many interactions in the hub world per day like so
yes which is very kind of XCOM. It's like
correct but they're trying to figure out they understand that like they're trying to value people's playtime but at the same time it's still an RTS so they're trying to find that balance
and that balance is going to be tough because like I am really excited that Nico from the Runaways is a character in here. But there's a good chance that she's not going to be like an OP character that I'm going to want to have on my squad. So they have to balance like, okay, I'm probably not going to level up and interact with Nico as much as I want for gameplay mechanic wise, but I still want to know story from that character. So they have to find a balance because like all the characters they have are like top tier characters outside of like the new Ghost Rider and then like Nico, unfortunately, that it's like, okay, we need to show like we need to put effort and time into all of these characters, but also realize that like there's not going to be enough time for most gameplays to interact with all the characters. So like it's a very tough balance, which is why I could totally see why like their hour count they want it to be high, but that's immediately going to knock you out of the picture for gameplay and then me as well potentially.
I will be very, very curious, and I don't want to I don't want everything to loop back to this, but I'll be very curious about if this comes to either one of the services, Game Pass or Plus, just because of the unknown with the game. But I feel at the same time, the 2K president came out and said we don't do that.
Yeah, at least not for day one.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a Marvel game, so you're gonna get money no matter what.
No, I know.
You are gonna get people that are like, oh shit, a new Marvel game, and wait, Venom, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange are on a cover. Hell yeah! And then they're gonna get it, and they're gonna play it, and they're gonna be like, what? Why?
I think it's gonna be like when people bought DC Universe Online and didn't realize what DC Universe Online was.
Yeah, they didn't realize it was an MMO. They thought it was gonna be Arkham Asylum. Yeah, so that's definitely going to happen with this.
Yeah.
We then I'm going off someone's recap, so this might not be the exact order, but we got the biggest troll where Jeff Keighley had his stage set up as a beach and said it has been several years since we've had a sequel to this game and it's finally we're ready to reveal more about it. Let's go to the island and let's not get bit or something like that. So jump to the trailer and it's a guy running on a dock and you're like, holy shit, is this Dead Island 2 finally? Because that was like the trailer for it. And no, it's Goat Simulator 3. So like the biggest troll, I don't know whose idea that was to
That's
do
Keeley's.
that. That's like Goat Simulator must have pitched the joke, but then like it had to be Keighley to be like, let's do it. So the idea that Jeff Keighley did this makes me hope that, hey, maybe we'll get some Dead Island info eventually in the future if like Jeff Keighley's willing to like
mess with you.
Mess with you and also like mess with the publisher that he partners with a lot in Deep Silver. So that was pretty hilarious, but I don't give a shit about Goat Simulator 3, sorry. We then got Midnight Fight Express. It's an isometric action game. It looked kind of interesting. Apparently it's being developed by like a single father, though he had to bring people in recently to get the game finished up. And I want to say this was it's coming August 23rd. It's pretty much coming to every single platform. I want to say this was a Game Pass game, but I'm not too sure. This could have been one of the indie Game Pass games, but don't quote me on that. And then we got Neo White Runs, which is like a speed run kind of anime looking game, and basically it's like people like anime characters like shooting their way through heaven. look pretty interesting. It's coming to Switch and PC. So a lot of platforming and stuff. This looks like it's going to be perfect for PC. It's actually coming June 16th. I don't know how it's going to translate to Switch. This looks like one of those games that I would be really excited to mess with on Switch, but can it handle the speed that they want to do for this game on the Switch? But I guess we'll find out next week when that comes out. Then we got a Warframe update. Then we got to see some Zenless Zone Zero, which is another anime-looking games. So basically, games that were anime games were at this event, and then we got some space games. Then there's like this game that Dave doesn't care about, TMNT Shredder's Revenge. That they basically announced 6-player offline online play and Casey Jones as the 6th character. And it's coming June 16th. So I'm guessing not physical copies because...
No, but it's also coming to Game Pass.
It is coming to Game Pass, yeah.
Which is super interesting to me. And I probably will end up picking it up on the Switch as well because it's only like $22.
Yeah. So we got some new gameplay from it. Looks pretty cool. We got to see like a decent amount of gameplay. And then 6-player online offline was good. I was hoping that they would announce like crossplay or something.
That's what I was going to ask you if they had anything in there about crossplay or anything like that.
No, nothing that I saw that mentioned crossplay. Unfortunately, I was really hoping that they would announce it,
especially for 6 players. Like
6 players is going to be hard to gather up, especially with the like the idea that's coming to Game Pass is just like, oh, this would be really good because like all my friends are going to be on PlayStation and Switch, but I don't have to buy it if I play it on Xbox.
I think I'm going to end up buying it on Switch just because I want to play it on portable and Owen.
Yeah, and I'm basically going to have to like message my friends of just like, you guys, what platform are you getting this on? Because we're gonna end up playing.
Yeah, and I guess ultimately, if there's enough people in the community, I have a majority of a player base on PlayStation, and I don't know the exact retail price of this game. I saw the pre-orders are live for Switch on the eShop, and it was $22.49, I think. So even if I have to spend, like I have a hard time mentally, like just dropping, $25 twice on the same game for Switch and for PlayStation when I can play it on Xbox. But if I have enough people that are on PlayStation, like Johnny's a boy or Tyler or Randy or Wyatt or anybody, and that's the platform we need to be on, and there's no cross play, then that's what it'll be. I just think it would be a huge missed opportunity to announce that large of a cooperative playing base and then limit it to platforms, because then it starts getting the question of like the weird capabilities that indies do have a harder, not that this is an indie, but they have a harder time getting past, is like, okay, how do we make PS4 play with 5? How do we make 1 play with Series? Like,
yeah, it puts them in like a weird spot. So I'm hoping they can figure that out. But even then, at like a $20 price point for digital, it's fine.
You gotta buy 3 copies of it. It's $60. That's how much a game costs, anyways.
Yeah, and the good thing, at least for like Xbox players,
as my wife rolls her eyes.
The good thing for us, like being like people that have Xboxes with Game Pass, is we can at least test it out and decide like, okay, this is worth.
All right, do I want to play this on Switch? Like, or do I want it? Do I want it in handheld?
Yeah, like I'm gonna download it day one, play it, and be like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. I'll pick it up on PlayStation to play with my friends if there's no crossplay. So. Right. We can at least test it out and just like convince our friends, like, hold off, I'm buying it.
It's just interesting. Like I tweeted it today, like and again, like I said, like my Game Pass subscription is tied to my All Access purchase of the Series X. So like it's an irrelevant point. But anytime I start to like really, like you just talked about it like 2 weeks ago or last week of like, hey, when my All Access ends, I'm gonna have to make a decision about Game Pass. Little things like this help tremendously. Is this a AAA game? No. Is this a slam dunk game? No. But it's nice, it's cool, it looks fun, and it's on Game Pass. Like,
yeah, and we're consistently seeing like .emu games that are side scrollers make it to Game Pass. So that means they have a good relationship. So when this happens again with .emu, there's a good chance that it's going to be a Game Pass game.
And I'm surprised that it comes out next week. So
yeah, that was the thing. Like at the end of the trailer, I think it was Leonardo. He was like just like playing the game on a Game Boy, and he turns around and is like, "Oh, this is the announcement that they're going to do crossplay." And then he turns around and it's just like, "Oh shit, okay, it's coming out next week." I was hoping the end of the trailer was
Yeah.
him turning around to be like, "Oh, and it has crossplay." Especially after they announced like, "Hey, we're gonna have 6-player online." It's like,
Yeah.
I wanted the crossplay announcement, but next week sounds pretty good. I'm off next week, so
Yeah.
I might mess with that.
This might be something to just get me going on completing a game too, because like I feel like this is going to be that sweet spot of what you talked about, like a 7 to 10 hour game, right? Like this can't be more than 10 hours.
Oh God, no!
Yeah,
I feel like this
4 to 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
depending on if you want to like
Yeah,
do
level up each
specific.
character, or maybe each turtle has a little bit of a different storyline, like a couple, nothing dramatic, but like the same story arc's the same, but with little different animated cutscenes as you go.
Like how these would work, where you get to the end of the game and there's like, oh, there's a different little like cutscene animation thing with whoever you had at the game. Could be possible. So then we got Hanakai Star Rail. Was this another anime game? It sounds like it might have been another. Yeah, this was another anime game. This looks pretty cool.
Is this the
most of
Genshin
the anime
team?
It might
I don't have the
be.
recap in front of me. Sorry. I know the Genshin Impact team is doing another game.
Yeah, I think this might be. Is it the Hoyaverse? I believe is what they were calling. He kept referring to it the Hoyaverse, so it might be.
Okay.
So this looked pretty cool, but I wasn't fully invested in it as soon as I saw like, oh, kind of anime game. Then we got to see Nightingale, which is like some of the, I want to say BioWare Montreal people, like people that left BioWare. So this looked good. It's procedurally generated, like first person, like game with like some sort of card building mechanic. This looked pretty cool. It's actually launching later this year in 2022. So I'm hoping it makes it. I believe this was just announced last year. So I'm not expecting like a gigantic game, which, as we said multiple times, is kind of what we're looking for. Like nothing like gigantic, especially when we're talking about like games from like these newer studios or the smaller studios. I'd rather get like smaller bite-sized games from them, especially if they have like a AAA like look to them. Like I don't mind a smaller game. Then we got Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide. I can't keep track of all the Warhammer games, Dave. Like I really can't. If we saw this one before or not, but it is coming out September 13th.
There's a heavy Xbox Discord that I'm in with some guys I used to play Destiny with when Destiny was on Game Pass on Xbox, and they're pretty excited. They've been talking about this for like 2 months.
Yeah. I never have gotten into the Warhammer games. The only thing I will say is Summer Game Fest did exactly what it needed to do, where we're starting to fill out that second half of the year in terms of releases. This one's September 13th. So we're starting to get like a rough idea of what the holiday is going to look like. We don't really have anything major coming out this holiday still, but there's at least enough stuff filling
July and
the
August
gaps.
Still look kind of tumbleweedy.
Especially now that like Shredder's Revenge is out next week, because that was going to be your game like, oh, I hope it comes out in July or August. So I'm
not complaining that it's next week at all, but at the same time I was like I wasn't, I don't know. But now it's like, okay, there's some cool stuff in September, there's some cool stuff in October, there's some cool stuff in November, and even a little bit in December like we just talked about. But then it's like, okay, like where's the June and July stuff? And that could, maybe that's Xbox. Maybe Xbox is going to start pumping some stuff out every 2 weeks on Game Pass in June and July and August. Who knows?
There's enough like smaller indie games and AA games that have been announced for this summer that I wouldn't be surprised if we get during the Xbox press conference just that like, here's a 2-minute like montage of games coming to Game Pass this year. Especially when we're talking about like the smaller games, they definitely could like afford a bunch of those.
To be fair, Stray is in there. Hopefully Stray is great. Stray is July. So, and then that Roller Drome, I believe, is August.
Yes, it's definitely the summer. So we're going to start seeing stuff fill out, especially, we're going to have to start accounting for PlayStation Plus tiers as well for like what they're going to bring, especially.
And that's the only positive, and that's the only positive too. But now, like when you hear a game coming out like the first Tuesday of the month, that's only coming to PlayStation. And it's PlayStation branded. You're like, is this a Plus game? Because it's always the first Tuesday of the month, and that's gonna kind of be going away a little bit.
They are changing how they're gonna do stuff, though. They said there will be updates throughout the month. Yeah. So like it's gonna throw like a wrench.
No. And that's what I'm saying. It's like Stray is like the middle of July or like late July.
Yes.
So it's not the monthly update, like that they've been doing, which is great. Like that's fine.
Yeah, the thing I'm excited about now that with PlayStation Plus is going to be buying indie games to come over to its platform is money's going to be flowing into the indie like industry and the AA studios industries, which means we'll start seeing like a better quality indie game or AA game,
just like we saw when they focused on indies for a while.
Yeah, and we see that a little bit with Game Pass when Game Pass starts like funding some of these indies. So we're gonna see like a lot of indie studios are like, we can put the extra effort in or put some DLC post release stuff time in because guaranteed checks coming from either PlayStation or Xbox.
Shredder's Revenge looks amazing. Is it gonna sell a million copies? I don't know, but now they got a certain amount of dollars from Game Pass and they don't have to sweat that.
Yeah, and if they want to do some fun DLC, they
and if
totally
if the deals were bad, like we keep hearing, if Game Pass is bad and subscriptions are bad for the devs, they wouldn't take the deals.
Yeah, no one's forcing them, especially when you're talking about like the Xbox platform, which is the least selling platform of the three platforms. So like, if it was a bad deal, they wouldn't be doing it. And then we're gonna see like the indies like are lining up for Xbox. As soon as PlayStation is starting to cut those checks, they're going to line up for PlayStation because it's like, oh, PlayStation's got the player base.
Yeah. Well, now they're going to
and they're cutting checks?
They're going to sit there and say, if I'm making a cool indie game, all right, okay, hey Sony, Xbox offered me this. Hey Xbox, Sony offered me this.
Yeah.
And
then it's going to come down to like, okay, who can pay more? Who has the greater player base that you could benefit
off? And Sony would win that battle. Like, and just,
every time.
Sony will win that battle every time. Like, oh, we're going to offer you, I don't even know what the number is, 10 million less, but we're going to give you this many people.
Yeah. So microtransaction the shit out of your game, and then you'll be able to like easily cover whatever losses you're going to have.
Yeah.
If you took the Xbox deal. We got to see a Saints Row trailer. Basically, it's just showing you that you can create your own character. It's pretty interesting, though. It kind of... I love Saints Row, but I realize I think I love the characters of Saints Row.
So that's what I heard today, too. People are like, okay, I think I'm officially annoyed that all my characters are gone.
Yeah, and like you're always been able to create your character, but it's the side characters that matter in a Saints Row games that give the game the personality. And they haven't done anything to show me that the side characters aren't just annoying millennials. And I say that as a millennial, but like the Saints Row characters were like kind of cringe, but like adorable in some aspects. There was like something about them that was like charming or redeemable. And then like right now I'm just seeing like I don't know, I just don't see anything story wise or character wise to where I'm just like, oh, it's just a bunch of like Instagram
I can't speak in depth to Saints Row. I mean, my definition of Saints Row starts with Agents of Mayhem, so that's already like messed up.
You can't even say
so I think that the boss creator looks really cool. But it sounds like it's something that's been around forever.
I don't know. I just didn't see anything in that, like any of the stuff for
It's
Saints
a cool
Row.
way to build some hype. Like,
yeah, it is, but it just feels so manufactured right now and like generic.
They're gonna kind of quote unquote control the Twitch window for the weekend. Like people are gonna be playing it, messing it, talking to their chat, making a character, making them look ridiculous. So they'll get their trending top 10 on Twitch for a weekend, and then the game will come out later.
Yeah, I'm hoping I know like I think in the chat bed I think Shawnee is going to be there, and then also I did see like someone created in that trailer Johnny Gat, so it's like oh okay, are you just allowing us to create the characters we like,
and then are they allowing uploading? Am I going to be able to grab somebody's character like that?
But even then, like creating a character is one thing. I want to interact with the characters. I don't want to just create one of the characters.
Don't worry. Like somebody like Johnny is a boy, he's going to spend like 7 hours making a character. So.
No, for sure. But like, but at a certain point,
what does that do if he's just a wax figurine in a hall?
Yeah, and that's my concern is like I haven't seen anything quite that interests me. Humankind is a new game coming out to. It's not new, but it's coming to console and it's coming to Game Pass. And this is basically, it looks like it's a Civ sort of game. It looked actually pretty cool. Like there's some new DLC for it out, which is what the whole trailer was for. But it's saying like, hey, the game's coming out to consoles and is going to be on Game Pass day one. So if you're on PC, there's new DLC for Humankind. It looked pretty good. Wasn't really on my radar, but after that, I was like, oh, you know what? When it comes to consoles, I'll mess with it.
Johnny's in the chat, and I knew he was in the chat. He's like, Johnny Waxman doesn't interact.
Then we saw a trailer for Gotham Knights focusing on Nightwing. Looks good, but it was mostly like kind of like a CG trailer again. I kind of don't like the character designs for most of the characters. I like Robin and Batgirl's character design, but I do not like Red Hood and Nightwing's character design, which kind of bums me out. But it still looks like it could be fun.
If Shredder's Revenge can do 6-player co-op, I wish this game could do 4.
Yeah, I still it baffles me that they like are stopping at 2-player.
Yeah.
Oh, but they did go
this
back
game.
on that.
This game has a subscription service written all over it right now.
Yeah, but they did say like they went back on like you can have 2 Nightwings, right?
I don't know.
Okay, because I remember at first they were like, no, you can't double up on the same character.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they ever went back on that because it's just like at a certain point, if you're doing a like online game, you have to like break some of those rules just because. You might want to. Your friend might be playing Nightwing as well, so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not sold on the character designs, but I've also had that problem with like the Avengers game.
I also feel like this game is dark enough that when you're in the third person and you start doing the combat, you kind of move away from the character anyway, so you're not going to be looking at him constantly. Yes, you'll be irritated in a cutscene, but maybe he'll look a little better in a different suit. He'll look a little different in a different suit that he unlocks. Maybe I don't know.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, I can change out some of the character like. Suits and stuff like that. I don't know, something about like the outfits just aren't doing it for me. Except like Batgirl and Robin's outfits look pretty good. But I'm not too sure about this one. But the game does look good. It looks fun. It's gonna have a chance to like take over the internet like Outriders did the first couple of weeks it was out. And there's Outriders DLC coming. I believe that was.
They showed off some of the expansion stuff. Yep, that new endgame thing they're doing.
Bloober Team showed off their new game. Everyone was really excited. Kind of excited. But it does turn out to be a Layers of Fear sequel called Layers of Fears. So it's basically the first 2 games combined into one game, I guess. So definitely feels like a move from a studio that might be working on something bigger. And then this is something to release. But like, this was a time where if you're working on a Silent Hill game, make the announcement here because like people were already on the fence about Bloober Team being the ones working on Silent Hill. For them to just be like, yeah, we're going back to Layers of Fear, it was kind of a letdown.
Time to drop the mic. Whoever's doing it, somebody please drop the mic.
Yeah, just do it. Like Konami's not going to have their own event unless it gets shown off at the Xbox thing because that could be a big get for Xbox if like people are like Sony's going to partner with Konami for Silent Hill, and then if Xbox can just slide in there and be like, no, they're partnering with Xbox, and then they do that. That could be pretty big, especially because like Bloober Team worked with Xbox originally.
We thought the show was gonna be half an hour at 48 minutes.
Oh yeah, that always happens. We're at 43 minutes, we're fine. And then there was a Quarry trailer. Which is the new game from Supermassive. That's out today or tomorrow. Though, I was interested in it, but they've already talked about like there's some game-breaking bugs that they hope to finish soon.
People are saying like this is the prototypical like the movie's better than the game kind of thing, like where like what you watch is better than what you play.
Yeah, it sounds like there's like some mechanics that really hold the game back. Like they try to do some new things and it just like didn't work out. And then I think they were tweeting out earlier, like, "Hey, so we'll fix what's happening in Chapter 10 or something." And I'm just like, "Okay, I'll wait. This will be a July-August game for me." If they're putting out like warnings for like, "Oh, hey, watch out for Chapter 10. We hope to fix that soon." It is kind of worrisome for me at least. And then we got the end of the show, and it basically was a Last of Us corner. So Neil Druckmann came out. Talked about factions just a little bit. Basically, just said factions is gotten so big that it's its own game. They're not ready to show anything but a picture. But they did say it's all new characters. It is going to be story-based multiplayer. They didn't exactly say what that means, but I would imagine Dave's just done. He's just like, to show something. But I would imagine it would be a cross between kind of how what we saw with Titanfall 1, where that was a story campaign done through multiplayer, which was like interesting but ahead of its time. Or if you look at stuff like Destiny, when they like blew up the moon or whatever the fuck they were doing in Destiny, that one event. But they did say like this is going to have like enough story content that it feels like a full Naughty Dog campaign. So don't know what exactly that means, other than like, hey, it's a multiplayer game and it takes place in San Francisco with all new characters. I'm more interested in it now, but I'm still disappointed that they couldn't give a release window, couldn't give a release date, and didn't have any footage to show.
And then they said more news next year.
Yes, yeah. Which is a bummer, especially as it went on and it got me excited of The Last of Us again.
So
just like,
everybody was led to believe, based on their earnings call, that this game was going to come out before the end of March. And if they're not even talking for real about it, or haven't even named it, it's not coming before March.
I think there's a chance it could still come before March, but we're talking about between January
and it ain't free to play now.
I still would say,
at that size and scope of their single player game, like Naughty Dog's gonna Naughty Dog, like, come on.
But I feel like if they wanted to really succeed, they're gonna have to heavily consider free to play, despite
then there's
the
gonna
amount
be
of budget
monetized out the ass. Like, worse, but Sony doesn't know how to do that yet. They haven't shown they know how to do that. I'm sorry.
I still think this game would have been out sooner if Sony didn't acquire Bungie. Like, I feel like this game was going to come out and it was going to be in a certain condition.
If I agree with you,
yeah,
why don't we see even a CG trailer? We don't know what kind of multiplayer it is. We don't know if it's a battle royale. We don't know if it's a team-based thing. Like, in my mind, like, looking at that picture,
they're still calling it Factions. Yeah. So I would say they're calling it Factions 2.
He did call it Factions 2. Druckmann did.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Because I've seen this thing like be on the lookout or something like that. And they put the lookout in quotation marks on one of somebody's tweet today. But like that picture automatically shows like, are we going to be like kind of doing like a tower defense thing where you're holding one area and you're setting traps? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're scrounging drawers like you do in the game, and you're making Molotovs and you're making barbed wire traps, and like are you going to hold down? Are you going to make traps and like try to make somebody think you're in one building and you're in the other building? Is it a battle royale? Like, or is it? Like, I mean, there's so many questions, and I agree with you. Like, could they make it out by March? Yes. Could it be free to play? Sure. Are you confident in Sony's marketing ability to start a marketing campaign in January and release this game in March?
Sony can make commercials and just send it out. Will they get the messaging right out to the gamers?
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, that's always going to be a concern with Sony in their current state, because they might as well they'll do this announcement in a GQ interview.
And then I didn't even realize this either until Johnny just said this in chat. There's no Faction 1 in the remake.
And I think that's kind of the problem, is because we'll talk about it in a second, or let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
We did get the first trailer. It did leak earlier, and they were making a lot of jokes about the stuff leaking. But we are getting The Last of Us Part 1 is what they're calling it, and it's a full from the ground up remake that is going to implement like the combat and AI that we got in The Last of Us Part 2 into this game, and it does look like a significant upgrade because especially when you look at side-by-side images of the remaster and
looks
this remake.
Amazing. Even the PS4 version. This like the clickers look amazing.
It almost looked cartoonish when like you see like the side-by-side of old Joel and then the new Joel, to where it's like, oh shit, they did kind of have like a cartoon aesthetic just a little bit, almost cell
shaded for sure.
Yeah.
And this looks great. Like it looks great. I don't know how I feel yet about $70 and replaying that emotional roller coaster just for a prettier game. I don't know how I feel yet. And now this is the third SKU of this game.
Yeah, but new platform, only PS5, which is
Yeah.
interesting. They're not doing it on PS4.
Why? They already have one on PS4.
No, I know, but it's
know,
Sony
sorry.
right now. But like, I think this is going to be a true test to if Sony does actually have, like, we know The Last of Us is like a classic, a modern day classic, but I feel like them marking it as a $70 is just them saying like this is a timeless game,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a real test.
Is there supposed to be new dialogue?
No. They're using the same performance and stuff, but like some of the combat could be slightly different based on like how the new AI is going to interact. So some of the actual gameplay setup might be slightly different, but it's still like the experience we know.
And PC later. So PC,
yeah, and PC later.
Later this year, though. I'm sure it'll be this year, but later.
Yeah.
It'll be before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and like I feel like they knew they weren't going to do like the multiplayer together with this, so they're like, we have to release this September. It's coming out September 2nd, and then the multiplayer has to come after it because they can't be too close together because then people are going to be like,
well, that
was like first
the
Last of Us had multiplayer.
Yeah, that was like the only reason that I bought the PS4 version of Last of Us, because I wanted to play the multiplayer because you couldn't play with PS3 players. So like, you know, playing with Johnny, playing with some people like back in the old PS Nation days, like we had a group of like, I don't even know, 8 or 10 of us that were playing it, and they're all like, they were still booting up the PS3 at the time, and I'm like, all right, whatever, I gotta go get this.
Yeah, and then they shut those servers down too, so you only can play it on PS4.
Yeah.
So I totally understand why this is a $70 game. I'm fine paying $70 because it looks like a drastic upgrade to it, and I'm assuming we'll get like The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut shortly after this, because I would want both on PS5 just because Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time, and Part 2 is as well, so I'd like to have them both on, you know, the PS5 together. Will I want to replay 1 and 2 immediately after each other? Fuck no, because I can't handle that emotionally. But I think they did a good job at least presenting The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah.
I almost wish they never even evoked the multiplayer game during this or mention it because they had so little to say.
That's what people are
about
irritated about.
Like don't say
they're
anything.
excited and irritated, but it's almost like, hey, yeah, it's still a thing. We'll talk to you next year.
Yeah, I'm still hoping.
Unfortunately, that's an Xbox move.
Yeah, that's an Xbox move. Well, no, Xbox move would be like, and it's coming out in a couple months, and then delay it for a fucking year. Or an Ubisoft move and be like, indefinitely. But I thought this was a good showcase for the Last of Us Part 1. I do like that they're calling it The Last of Us Part 1 now. Give us a little symmetry.
I actually thought for a second, like when I first saw it, I'm like, wait a minute. Is this Last of Us, and they're doing it like episodically? Like, are they releasing like part 1 of the first Last of Us? And I was like, The Last of Us was called Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, but like I'm happy with like how that turned out. Like they didn't need to mention a multiplayer.
Yeah,
like
bad. They already said that there's no apparently they've already said there is no factions in Last of Us Part 1 remake.
Yeah, it's just a single player.
There's no multiplayer. And that's also why people are kind of irritated as well, because you're charging more for theoretically less content. Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically, but then you go into like how significant of an upgrade it is and like how much work was put into it. So I'm fine paying the $70 because I'm not cheap. And
wow.
Yeah. Fuck it. You can't complain about your $500 console and then be like, oh my god, they're charging $10 more than games. Yeah. Shut the fuck up and just pay the $10, you fucking rich people. So then we got that. We did get like a pointless image of Joel and Ellie in the TV show, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Cool. Like, it's cool seeing them in like their clothing from the game. But here's just $400. Okay, you got no disc. Who gives a shit? Pay $10 more for your games. Deal with it. It's your fault because you bought the digital one, which means you don't get sales. So good luck getting The Last of Us Part 2 for $10 off, or Last of Us Part 1 remastered for $10 off in 3 years when it goes on sale on the PSN store. Or when it comes in 7 years on PlayStation Plus Extra Premium Deluxe.
Wow, I thought I was the feisty one today. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. No, because it's the entire day on Twitter.
Well, no, it's been Modern Warfare $70, Modern Warfare 2 $70 on PC, and then Last of Us Remake on PC.
Yeah, it's just like this. Oh god, every time I turn around, it's like, can we talk about how the game looked like from that?
Can we talk about that a video game should probably cost $90 or $100 realistically right now?
Yes. I had an N64 when I was a kid, and I had one game for it because games are $80 or $90, so I could only have one game. Yeah, they did said we will hear more about the Last of Us show, because they asked like, oh, and the Last of Us show is coming out next year, and he's like, oh wait, we actually are finishing filming tomorrow, but I can't say if it's like, he basically refused to answer that it's coming out next year. I don't think they surprise us with a December release.
No, but it could line up with like what we've been talking about, is like factions lining up with the show.
Yeah. So we might have like HBO likes to release stuff in like late January, February, so I could see the show slotting into there, and then maybe the show ends with the game coming out, the multiplayer, which I would imagine if you're Sony, you want to get that multiplayer lined up with the show that you think is going to be like the biggest show in the world. So
I think the story stuff, I think it'd be very interesting if you're going to try to tell a games as a service story for something that happens in the show to be happening in the game, kind of similar. Like you're on episode 3 and you're in week 4 of the game.
Yeah, and like, because we know they're just retelling the first story, but if they can like talk about what's happening in San Francisco, and then it's like, oh well, the multiplayer is taking place in San Francisco. Yeah. Like they could,
or you hear like you're interacting with a vendor. And you're like, hey, did you hear what happened in Pittsburgh? Like as words getting across the country about the Fireflies.
They found
or
a
something.
gear with the cure, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
There's cool stuff they could do, but that's how they ended Summer Game Fest. So Jeff Keighley did keep to his word in terms of like, hey, we're going to see a lot of games that were already announced, but we're going to get gameplay for those. But then we did get a lot of just CG trailers, which is, guess what? That's how
these
E3
always
go. Yeah. And it goes in cycles. Like, remember there was a couple years where they're like, you were seeing gameplay, and then that worked for like 1 or 2 years, and then it was
here's the harsh reality is that there ain't any of these games that are really ready.
Yeah.
Or when they release gameplay, like Midnight Suns did like 4 months ago, the internet loses its shit.
Yeah. There was literally like Jeff Keighley stopped the show kind of at one point to be like, hey, there's stuff happening in the Ukraine still. Kept calling it a conflict. It's an invasion. But
it's
like,
a war.
Yeah. But he kept saying like conflict, like it's like, a disagreement. But he basically was like, put up a picture of a game, and he's like, hey, this studio, they try to get a trailer ready for the show, but because they're in Belarus and Ukraine, they weren't able to do it. But we still wanted to mention their game on a show. So we got instances of that where it's just like some games were supposed to be there, and it just couldn't come together given a timeline. Which is why you see a lot of CG trailers. It's a lot easier to do CG trailers than to do anything else. Dave, what did you think of the show overall? Like from the announcements that you saw, since you didn't watch like every minute.
I mean, ultimately, if you really want to know my opinion, I got exactly what I wanted from Game Fest. I got a Shredder's Revenge release date, which is what I wanted.
Yeah.
So like that's what I wanted. In terms of like, it was that was my thing of coming out of Game Fest, is that I was hoping that we would see about Shredder's Revenge, and the other stuff like with Last of Us. I guess it coming in September, it concerns me for Ragnarok.
Yeah, because there's conflicting reports. We would talk about it on a next week's numbered episode if we had one. But
well, by the time we have one, maybe it'll be really delayed because they keep trying to cover it up, and then another one comes out and they keep trying to cover it up.
Maybe it'll show up at the Xbox Bethesda thing is coming to Game Pass on PC day one.
But with that September date, like I think trying to put Ragnarok out in October is too soon to the September one, and then I think that they don't like to put stuff out in November. Like they don't like to put their first party stuff out in November. So. Yeah.
And also, before anyone corrects me, no, I wasn't serious about a PlayStation game coming to Game Pass day one. So please don't tweet me saying like, oh my God, don't you realize
MLB The Show says hi.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But, yes.
Yeah, I know God of War is not coming to Game Pass, but it could on PC. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah, I think the show was like pretty good in terms of like Jeff Keighley set an expectation. And I feel like I've done this long enough. When the person running the thing sets an expectation, I tend to listen to them on like what to actually expect.
Yeah, the only negative I heard was people thought that The Rock's appearance was dumb, but at the same time, like, Keely's got to pay bills.
Yeah, the Rock thing it went on just a little too long, and it was like,
but Keely's got to pay bills,
Adam.
And I'm sure he gave him the money to pay the bills.
Yeah, he's like, here's my energy drink. Here's Black Adam. Here's my energy drink again. Here's my energy drink again.
Every time he's doing that, he's just there's money transferring like from Rock's pocket to Keely's pocket.
Yeah, or he's just hoping like just one tweet is worth whatever the Rock needs to push. Even if the Rock didn't get paid or didn't pay for the advertisement, just like one tweet from the Rock is enough to bump the show's numbers up. But I think it's overall pretty good. It's interesting. There are people in town for Summer Game Fest, but they did say next year Summer Game Fest will be an in-person event. So me and Dave would like to just say Jeff Keighley did a really good job.
and E3 is saying in person too.
Yeah, so, and like, like if you want to just, invite us, like, really good job. You're very handsome. Like, come on, say something nice about Jeff Keighley. I'll make him feel better.
He does a very good job with his shows and presentations, and he delivers the expectations he sets.
Yeah, I want to go to an in-person event. So, like, for the love of God, like, the idea that this could be an in-person event, like, sounds kind of good. Like, I'm interested to see on what that could look like, because it seems like Jeff Keighley kind of knows what he's doing. Like, jokes aside,
he's finding his groove for sure. Like, the Video Game Award show has gotten better each time, and now he's kind of got this 6-month cycle. The VGAs, Summer Game Fest, VGA, Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, and next year could be something that Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo went away from E3. Seems like all three of those companies like working with Jeff Keighley, so we might get an event where all three companies are coming together and doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually genuinely surprised to see him, Summer Game Fest, showing Sony's first-party stuff.
Yeah,
like,
it gave
not
it the
shocked, but kind of like, huh.
Yeah, and then Xbox has their thing Sunday, so they couldn't show anything big, but they at least showed Game Pass stuff.
Yep.
Which is important to them. And Nintendo had some stuff, like Nintendo didn't have anything major because literally everything coming out this year is already announced. Already has release dates.
I still fully expect in the next 7 days to hear them do some type of, like, because we only get like 48-hour notice for their directs anyways. So
yeah, I can see something.
I think that we might get a week, like Monday the 13th, like after Xbox goes, like they'll be like, okay, hey, we'll see you guys Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, I want to say Nintendo did promise a Splatoon Treehouse or event back in March or April, saying like they would do something this summer. So we might just get a Splatoon event or something. But like Nintendo's got it locked down. They have Splatoon with a release date. They got Pokemon with a release date. The Mario soccer game came out, I think, this week. So like Nintendo's set on the year. They just dropped Kirby and Switch Sports. So like Nintendo, like they can take a year off from like a summer direct and be just fine. But yeah, that was Summer Game Fest. So I'm kind of excited for the Xbox event, but I have a feeling I'm going to be like, wow, they really don't have anything for this year. And that's going to be the ultimate disappointment.
See, I think that the stuff, and we didn't really get into it too much, and I want to get into it. We can talk about it on Sunday, but getting some of the stuff out of the way today that they started putting on their blog about like the Samsung app and the demos. Yeah. Demos being part of Game Pass is stupid, just like it's stupid for Plus. But some of this, getting this crap out of the way, it piques my interest a little bit more, because this would have been something they would have talked about the Samsung app for like 15 minutes. Yeah,
and then the idea that like, oh, if you don't even have Game Pass, you can still stream games you own, is all stuff that's like a cool feature, but it's not like sexy.
Yeah, because like to me, like the Samsung app is the same thing I already have on my phone now. It's the same functionality. It might work a little better. I want to see I want to see the hardware thing.
Yeah, they're getting rid of basically all the stuff that we would have like rolled our eyes at during the event.
Bad. What info do you need about the Cowabunga collection? They've already like regurgitated all that stuff, and it comes out like in July. There's a collector's edition and everything. That's Konami. Yeah. Like they've already
pre-orders are up for that now.
Yeah, pre-orders are up, collector's editions are up, all the stuff's there. It's $150. I want it, but it's $150. No, it's all over. The Best Buy, Target, to store.
Yeah.
It's all over.
And then I think
It's like
limited run
$50,
games.
I think. $40, $50.
Yeah, $40 for just a standard edition.
$150
and then,
for the big collectors. Yeah.
Yeah, and then limited run games is doing something with Shredder's Revenge. That they will have more stuff to talk about.
It's
I think this
$40 digital. The game costs $40.
Yeah, so limited run will probably talk about a collector's edition for Shredder's Revenge.
That
this
might
week.
intrigue me. Like that might stop me from buying the Switch version digitally.
The only problem is with limited run is it'll take them a year to get you it. So
I don't do not bring facts to this conversation at the moment, okay?
I'm trying to help you, like, say, justify purchasing it and then buying it in triple.
It's on Game Pass.
Yeah, I know, man. And then that's going to keep you from getting PlayStation because you're like, hey, sweat, I bought a $200 bundle. How long did it take you to get your Scott Pilgrim bundle? And be like, it took like 15 months.
Yeah.
So we'll see that. But I guess we'll be back on Sunday, Monday for Xbox.
Thank you guys for listening. As always, please leave a review, some feedback. If this is your first time listening, anything, just subscribe and let us know what you thought. Tweet at Digital Days Pod is the main account. At the first MJC is Michael's. You can tweet at him about God of War Ragnarok coming to Game Pass. And then mine is at Good Dave Hunt. And I hope everyone has a great couple of days. And feedback and reviews are always appreciated. Check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. Have a good night. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya. All right. Yeah, we'll just do like a half hour.
Angela's going to kill us. She gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning anyways. So.
I guess I'll just...
So I guess those of you that are hanging out in chat, what did you think of the show? I'm actually more excited for Midnight Suns than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be one of those, like, if it doesn't come to like a Game Pass or PlayStation thing, you're going to be like, should I pick it up? And I'm going to be like, Dave, wait for a sale.
Yeah, but at this point in time, with everything that I'm not wanting to buy coming to Game Pass, like my gaming budget, like some of the money I have set aside.
I know, like I completely forget sometimes that I have Xbox All Access, to where I'm just like, oh my god, I'm spending $38 a month. That's going to be gone soon. I'm going to have $38 a month to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure that the Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge will be added probably Tuesday with the way their store updates for PlayStation, unless they figure that out. And the Cowabunga collection, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going. Konami's always been kind of weird with their stuff, but
yeah, I'm not too sure. Like they at least have pricing out for it, but like
it's not going to cost less. I mean, you can buy just a regular collection for $40 or the regular disc for $40. It's not going to cost less. Not from Konami. Yeah, it'll like you'll never see it. Like, I don't even. I guess I gotta look myself too. I know that you can. I know you can. I saw Wario tweet that Shredder's Revenge is up for pre-order on the eShop, and that's where I saw the $22.49 price point, which I thought was already a weird price point. I thought it should be 20 or 25 or whatever it's gonna be. So.
Yeah, there's sometimes weird pricing,
promo
with the
or
Switch.
sale or something going on, or yeah. So.
Oh yeah, you know what? It's probably the 10% off, which means it's $24.99,
Okay.
and then 10% off pre-order. So it's $25 game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's 1.1 million people following him. Bad. I'm sure you're following him. I'm just saying what he tweeted today. That's what I saw.
Oh, and they were tweeting so much today.
Yeah.
Because I think the the PlayStation Days of Gaming
Days of
thing
Play.
ended
Yeah,
today.
Days of Play.
Yeah, so I think everyone was tweeting out the last of the deals for that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we will talk to you again on Sunday. I'll have a good rest of your night.